Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Ready for Rome webinar. We're very happy you could join us today. My name is Shelly Ruel, and I'm the Community Manager at Italia Pass. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Lorian Filon, who is our Italia Pass Primo Italy Experience Specialist. And what that means is that she helps our Primo members plan their trips to Italy, and we'll get a little bit more into what Italia Pass Primo is during our presentation. So today we're going to be talking for about 30 minutes about some different things to help you get ready to come to Rome, some local customs and some logistical information. I've lived here for 23 years now, so I'm happy to share all of my local knowledge with you today. After our presentation, we're going to open it up for questions for about 15 minutes. And even if we can't get to everyone's questions in 15 minutes, I will answer them in writing and post those in our community after to any that I'm not able to get to today live. Before I get started, though, I wanted to just talk for one quick moment about what is Italia Pass, because many of you may have found this webinar because you purchased tickets with Italia Rail. And we have a family of brands. The Italia brands comprise Italia Rail, Tours, Drive, and Hotels. And we've worked with millions of tourists exploring Italy since 1987. And our CEO decided he wanted to help his customers have the best trip to Italy ever. So he created Italia Pass. And what Italia Pass is it's a membership program that has two different types of membership. There's a free online community, which anyone can join. And we also have what's called Italia Pass Primo, which is a benefits program that costs $99. And we'll be touching on that just briefly throughout the presentation in case it's something that you might want to add to your Italy trip when you come here. What we're going to cover today are the points you see here on your screen. First, we'll talk about how you arrive at the airport, how you get into the city, because most of you will probably be coming in at Fiumicino Airport in Rome. Then we'll talk a little bit about our lounge for our members, the Italia Pass Lounge at Rome's main Termini train station. I'll give you some information about how to take public transport here in the city. And I'll also talk a little bit about restaurants, menus, and some local customs here. And then we'll also give you some information about how you can get a complimentary entry into the Colosseum plus a $100 credit for a Rome or Vatican tour. And then I'll give you some local information about how to avoid some of the most common tourist traps, a few of my favorite local tips, and then we'll open it up. That'll take about half an hour for all of that, and then we'll open it up to about 15 minutes of a live Q&A. So I will turn it over now to Lorian to talk to you about how to get into the city from the airport.
Everyone. So thanks again for joining us. I'm going to be speaking a little bit now about how you get to the center of Rome from the airport. So as you can see on the screen there's a few options that you have. The first one to reach Roma Termini, which is the main station in Rome, is by train. So there are two types of trains that you can take. The first one is called the Leonardo Express, and it's a direct train to Termini station. It costs $16 on Italia Rail. And the second train is a more local option that directs you to the smaller stations in Rome. So that's in Trastevere and Ostiense, and it's $10 on Italia Rail. So you can choose either depending on where you're staying in Rome. Both trains are considered to be regional trains. So you do, if you buy your tickets ahead of time, or if you buy them in the station, you do have to check in before you're boarding these trains, and you can do so online. All of the instructions will be given to you by email if you book online. We generally get a lot of questions whether or not you should book the tickets ahead of time. I do recommend that you book in advance, especially if you're traveling during the high season, we're still in the high season right now. It's May to, I would say, now late October even, to make sure that you have the space that you want and best departure time that works for you depending on your flight. I also recommend leaving at least about 3 hours between the time you're landing in the airport and booking a train that leaves from the center of Rome, so from Roma Termini. At least 3 hours between these two times, so that you can, if there's any delays or luggage issues or anything, you do have that, a little bit of buffer time. There is also taxis that you can take outside of the terminal. The fixed rate is about 55 euros and is 55 euros. And the other options include taking a shuttle bus, or you can book a private transfer with us that takes you straight to your accommodations in Rome. So instead of taking the train that takes you to the station, you can take, a transfer, book it through us, and it takes you straight to your accommodations, which is really nice. And you can book that on the Italia Tours website or by speaking to an Italy experience specialist like myself if you're a Primo member with us. So now for the car rental. So that's also quite a frequent question that we get, is if you should rent a car while you're traveling to Italy. So one of the things to consider is that in major cities like Florence, Venice, Rome, and Milan, it's very hard to operate a car within the city walls. There's a lot of different rules and traffic regulations to park, to operate the vehicle, all of that. So I don't recommend renting a car if you're going between large cities, but if you are visiting the more rural or remote areas in Italy, it's definitely a good option. And you can do so on the Italia Drive website, as you can see on the screen. And our Primo members get $10 discount when they book on the website. It's given to you as a form of a rebate, and we refund it to your card once you've made the whole booking on there. Another great perk of being a member is the Italia Pass Lounge, which is located in the Roma Termini train station. If you have some free time before or after boarding a train, or you're waiting for your hotel check-in time, you can definitely relax there. We serve, free espresso, some refreshments, and you do have free luggage storage for your carry-on, but also for your larger suitcases. And during opening hours, our lounge hosts can also answer your questions that you might have about Rome and your train tickets. All you need to remember is that you do need to book your visit beforehand. When you become a Primo member with us, as soon as book the time that you plan on visiting, and that's all you have to do to visit the lounge. It's free because it's complimentary to our Primo members. So now I'll hand it over to Shelly for some information on public transport within the city.
Okay, great. So talking about public transport here in Rome, the company that runs public transport is called ATAC. And in Rome, we have three main types of public transport options. We have buses, metro, which is the subway. Metro is short for metropolitana, that's the underground. And there's only two lines, and they only cross in one place. So it's very simple. They only cross, it's line A and line B, and they only cross at Rome's Termini station. And then there's also a couple of above ground tram, like streetcars. Those are probably less frequently used by tourists. The tickets are relatively inexpensive compared to other large European cities. They're only €1.50, and these are time-limited tickets. So you won't have to worry about different zones of the city like you might in other large European cities. When you buy your ticket, it's €1.50, and it's good for 100 minutes from the time that you board your first method of public transport, whether that's a bus or the subway. And then it goes for 100 minutes, and you can ride unlimited public transport within that time limit. There is one exception, however, and that is that within that 100 minutes with that ticket, you only get one ride on the underground. So one metro ride means that once you enter the station, you can ride the metro wherever you need to go, even making a transfer from line A to line B at Termini station. But once you exit the metro station, that ticket is no longer valid for underground rides. However, if you haven't used up your 100 minutes yet, you can still use that ticket to get aboard buses or trams. There is a convenient option within the underground system, which is the tap and go system, to enter. So the metro requires that you go through a turnstile to board. So you have to have a ticket to get in. You have to have a ticket on all public transport, but what I mean is to get into the metro, you have to basically show your ticket, go through the turnstile, whereas on buses, no one's checking for tickets when you board. You don't have to show it to the driver, and you cannot purchase tickets on board. So for the metro, you're going to be able to purchase it right there at the turnstile, whereas with the buses, I'll tell you in just a second where you can get those tickets. But for Tap and Go, you don't even actually have to purchase an individual ticket. If you have a contactless payment method, like a credit or debit card, or even on your smartphone, a contactless payment method, then you can just tap at the turnstile and that functions as your own 50 ticket. It will automatically take that off of your payment method. However, one thing to note is that you can only use one payment method per rider. So you can't use your same debit or credit card for multiple riders. Each rider needs their own payment system or their own card, basically payment card. And the reason for that is that if an inspector were to get on the metro, which probably won't happen on the metro, but since that ticket is valid for buses as well, if an inspector were to come on the bus and ask you to show your ticket, you would show your payment method as your ticket because they have that in the system. There are unlimited ride passes for 24, 48, or 72 hours if you think you're going to be riding public transport a lot. And at the end of this presentation, I will show you where you can go online to get a list of all the resources we're talking about today. And I will have more information about those passes if that's something that interests you, the cost, etc. So now for tickets, for paper tickets, let's say if you're going to ride a bus, because at the bus stops, you won't find ticket machines. You're going to want to buy your ticket, which is called biglietto in Italian. Now you can buy them at machines in the underground. So there are ticket machines in the metro stations. However, if you're just going to be riding buses, then you're going to want to buy your ticket at what's called a tabaccheria, which is a tobacconist shop. And those are easy to find because they have a T over the door. So they're little tiny shops that sell just anything you'd find like in a tobacco shop, cigarettes or little gum and mints and things like that. So that is the tabaccheria, and you can ask for a biglietto or at a newsstand. Newsstands are spread all throughout the city, and you can ask for a ticket at the newsstand and purchase it there. So when you get your paper ticket on the bus, you're going to see these little yellow boxes. As soon as you board the first method of public transport, you're going to stick your ticket in the box. It's going to grab the ticket into the machine and then spit it back out. And what it's done is validated it. So at that point, that's when the time starts, and it'll have a timestamp on your ticket. So from that point forward, you do not have to validate anymore. You only do it once, and then it's good for 100 minutes from that point forward. Last but not least, I wanted to give you a little bit of a heads up about one particular bus that is extremely convenient for tourists, but also can be a target for pickpockets. So bus 64 is really convenient because it goes from the main train station, Termini, all the way across the historic center over to the Vatican. And so it makes it easy to hit a lot of major points that you might want to visit. But at the same time, pickpockets know that that's where a lot of tourists travel on that bus route. So while I don't in any way want to make you feel alarmed or worried about pickpocketing, it's just something to keep in mind. I always tell people, now knock on wood, but I've been here for over 20 years and I've never been pickpocketed. And the reason for that is because I'm always really aware of my belongings, and it's very easy to do. So for example, if you have a bag, you just wear like a cross bag, like wear the bag across your body and kind of keep your hand on it. Or for men, if you have a wallet, put it in your front pocket. If you look like you know where you're going and you're aware of what's going on around you, you will not be a target for pickpockets because there are plenty of tourists who look very distracted, and those are the ones who are easy for pickpockets to target. So that advice goes, of course, throughout the city, but especially in crowded tourist areas like bus 64 and Termini station in general. Next, I want to talk about the fun stuff, all the wonderful and amazing food that you're going to eat when you come here to Rome. So we'll talk a little bit about restaurants. So there's a couple of things that might be different with our restaurants here with our dining times. So for example, we eat a little bit later than you might be used to here in Rome and in Italy in general. We have lunch starting around 1 p.m. and dinner starting around 8 p.m., 1:30, 8:30. Now, it's not that you're not going to be able to eat out at earlier times than this, but if you're going to a restaurant where locals eat and you need to make a reservation, or you're just dropping in even without a reservation, dinner time and lunchtime, you probably won't want to go before those times. So just keep that in mind. The check. What I want to tell you about the check, it's called il conto if you want to try your Italian out. So when you're here in Rome, typically they won't drop your check off before you ask for it. So I know a lot of times, for example, in the United States where I'm from, your server will, as soon as all the food is delivered, they'll oftentimes just say, here's your check or whatever I'll leave this for you and I'll take this whenever you're ready. It's a convenient thing because maybe you're in a hurry and they want you to be able to pay whenever you're ready without having to ask for the check. Well, it's pretty much the opposite here. And the reason is cultural. Here in Italy, we go out to eat to spend time with family and friends, and the wait staff wants to respect the fact that you have that table from the time that you sit down to the time you want to leave. Unless the restaurant is really famous and popular and they've told you they have certain seating times, that's rare. Generally, once you have a table, it's yours for as long as you want it. And so that being the case, they don't want to make you feel pushed to leave. And so they're not going to generally bring you the check. So if you're kind of waiting for the wait staff to bring it, you'll be waiting a long time. You're going to need to ask because they just want to be courteous of your time and not make you feel rushed. In terms of tipping, that's a question we get a lot. You do not need to tip at restaurants here. It's not required. The wait staff makes a regular salary. They do not work for tips. You are more than welcome to leave like maybe €1 per person if you feel like you had a really good meal, really good service as a courtesy. But certainly we would never leave anywhere near 20%. So, and that also goes for taxis. People ask me that a lot about taxis as well. No need to tip in a taxi. You can just, if you're paying in cash, you can just round up. So for example, if your taxi fare is say $11.25, you can give them 12 or give them 15 and tell them to just give you back the change that rounds up. So to make it easy, but you don't need to tip. Quickly about menus. So we have two main types of restaurants I wanted to make you aware of. What the ristorante, which means restaurant, is a place where you can get pasta and meat dishes, but you may or may not find pizza at every ristorante because sometimes some restaurants don't have pizza and you're going to have to go to a pizzeria, a specific pizza restaurant. And you may not find pasta at a pizza restaurant. It just depends. So just be aware of that. The menu at a ristorante, you're going to generally see three categories. You're going to have antipasto, which are your appetizers, primo, which are your pasta dishes or rice like risotto, and secondo. Secondo are going to be your meat dishes and fish. You don't have to order all the courses. You can pick and choose. That's fine. In terms of the pizzeria, there's two types of places you can get pizza. So a pizzeria is a sit-down pizza restaurant. And pizza al taglio is called, I mean, it literally translates to cut pizza. And that's more like street food. So when you're out walking in the city, you'll see shops that have pizza in glass cases. And you can go in there and ask for pizza. You can eat it to go. Or you can eat it there. Sometimes there's places to sit, but it's like fast food pizza. It's delicious. It's not like junk food pizza, but it's just quick. You don't sit down and order necessarily at the table with a menu. And the way the pizza al taglio works is that you're going to indicate how much you want. They'll kind of use their hands to say how much, how much, and you tell them and they're going to cut it according to your specifications. Then they're going to put it on a scale and they're going to weigh it because it's sold by weight. So it's not necessarily that you're going to find I want one piece or two pieces. You tell them how much you want and then they'll weigh it for you. And I would say the price generally comes out to around 5 or 10 euros per person. And you can eat it to go or they can put it in a box for you. In terms of why I put toppings here on the bullet point is that in a pizzeria, in a sit-down pizza restaurant, the way it works is that pizzas are individual here. Roman style pizza is a very thin crust. It's often a wood-fired pizza. And every single person at the table is going to order their own individual pizza. Now, don't be intimidated. It's not like a giant deep dish. You're going to probably be able to eat most of it. It's so thin. Some tricks that Italians do if they get full is they kind of leave the outer crust and just eat the inside. But you're going to order your own pizza. And in terms of toppings, you're not going to tell the wait staff what toppings. You're not going to make your own creative topping pizza. They're going to have on their menu your choices because there's pretty standard types of topping combinations, and they each have like a title or a name. So you may have heard margherita. Margherita is your name for cheese pizza. So just know that in advance. You're going to look at the menu, and a lot of places will have an English menu available, especially in the touristy areas. So don't feel intimidated, like I'm not going to understand what I'm ordering. A lot of times they're going to know enough basic English to explain to you what's on the menu. Supplì, I wanted to tell you about fritti. So fritti translates to just generally like fried, it means, but it's like fried food, fried appetizers. This is a typical pre-pizza appetizer. It's a supplì. It's a Roman specialty. You can't really find it anywhere else in Italy. And it's that picture you see on the bottom right corner. It's a fried rice ball. Basically, they take rice, put a tomato meat sauce, and they make a ball out of it, and they put a little ball of mozzarella in the middle, and then they bread the outside and they deep fry it. So you can see how the cheese gets all melty. That's like a street food too. You're going to find that also at the Pizza al Taglio. They run about €1. So it's a really good snack too if you're on the go and you want to just get a quick snack. Last but not least on this section, I wanted to tell you about coffee. If you want to drink coffee like a local, the coffee bar is called Il Bar. And the way it works is you're going to go in and first you're going to pay for what you want. Then you're going to move over to the coffee counter and order directly with the barista according to what you've already paid for on your receipt. Now, be aware of the fact that when you say cafe, that to an Italian means espresso. So if you say, I want a cafe, don't expect to get an American coffee in a mug. Cafe, they'll say un cafe, that they know that for them that means an espresso coffee, which is a little coffee shot. Now, cappuccino is what we drink for breakfast, and we drink espresso after dinner. It's the wait staff knows that tourists may want to order a cappuccino after dinner, but an Italian would never order a cappuccino after dinner. So if you're at a really local restaurant, they may not even be able to make you a cappuccino after dinner. They may not even have milk in their restaurant. So I just wanted to let you know, if you do like to drink cappuccino after dinner, some places may not have that. And if you want to be super local, don't ever ask for it after, like, I don't know, people say don't ask for a cappuccino after lunch, but it's just generally a breakfast drink. The best places for espresso I will include on my resource list that I'm going to tell you guys about at the end. So that covers the restaurant portion. I'm going to now turn it back over to Lorianne to tell you about how to get into the sites.
Great. So now for all the exciting sites you'll get to see during your stay in Rome. Primo member do get a free skip the line ticket of a $22 value, which gives you access to the Colosseum, the Roman Forum, and Palatine Hill. And we do also offer guided tours of the Vatican, the Colosseum, to which we can definitely credit your free entrance ticket, as well as walking tours of the rest of Rome. That includes Piazza Navona, the Spanish Steps, the Pantheon, the Trevi Fountain. What I recommend is taking a look at our Rome Tour Pass on the Italia Tours website if you're spending at least 2 full days in Rome, because it includes all of the above. So what I just mentioned, the Vatican, the Colosseum, and a walking tour. You can also, if you're a member with us, get a $100 credit to spend on your first tour booking and 10% off of any subsequent tours. As I mentioned, again, these experiences are available on italiatours.com, and you can also email us if you have any questions or you need help booking these tours. This is what the Italy Experience Specialist benefit as a Primo member is to kind of guide you through that. I highly recommend booking these tours as soon as you're aware of your dates, especially when it comes to the Vatican, because there's always very limited space, and you never want to count on a last-minute reservation. We also get a lot of frequent questions about the dress code, and a good general rule is that if you'd like to visit the Vatican or any of the main basilicas or duomos, you do need to wear clothes that will cover your shoulders and knees. This is especially true for the Vatican. You also won't be able to bring large backpacks, any strollers, or any large items into the Vatican and the Colosseum. So what I recommend is having a crossbody bag or something kind of smaller, which is more convenient in this situation. It's also better for any, a more like added safety for pickpocketers and all of that. You definitely feel better with a crossbody bag or something that's closer to you than a large backpack. And now I'll leave it to Shelley to give you some local tips.
Okay, so let's talk for a moment about how you can avoid some of the most common tourist traps. When it comes to restaurants, a complete giveaway that it's a touristy oriented restaurant is if they have pictures on the menu, because an Italian doesn't need a picture to know what they're about to eat. Also another giveaway is if there's someone, what I'm calling a promoter, if there's people outside of the restaurant kind of trying to usher you inside, any decent restaurant has no need to try to solicit customers at the entrance. So these are restaurants geared towards tourists. Now, are you going to have a horrible meal? Probably not. Are these restaurants geared towards tourists? Are the prices maybe going to be a little higher? Is it going to be a less authentic kind of down home Roman meal? Probably. So it really depends on where you're at. These are the type of restaurants you're going to find like right outside the Pantheon, you know, right around the Vatican and some of these really highly touristy areas. So they're easy to avoid because, I mean, you can easily look up on Google like restaurants and find there's tons and tons and tons of resources online for like local restaurants in Rome. And I also in my resources list have a couple of the restaurants that I like that I recommend for local eating. Another touristy trap, if you will. So you see this picture on the top. There's a gladiator with his Samsonite. He's waiting to cross the crosswalk. This gentleman's coming home from work because some people dress up as gladiators and stand in front of the Colosseum and they take pictures with tourists, which is all fine and good. If you want a picture with a gladiator, go for it. I would just recommend that you agree on the price before you go ahead and take that photo, because that way you'll avoid any unpleasant surprises afterwards if they're trying to ask you for a lot of money. I've heard it costs around 10 euros. I'm not sure. I've never actually asked a gladiator how much they charge. However, some people don't even know that that's something that gets charged for. So just be aware of that when you're at the Colosseum. Another tourist target are these roses. This gentleman in the bottom right, you see with these giant bunches of roses, especially in the evenings, they go around the historic center and they'll try to give it to you and make you take it and say, hey, it's a gift. Well, of course, it's not a gift. They want you to pay for it. But I think the logic is that once it's in your hand, you feel obligated, right, to then pay for it. So if you want to avoid that, just walk right by. Don't feel like you're being rude. There's plenty of tourists for them to target. Last but not least, I hope you're going to love and enjoy our delicious gelato here in Rome. If you want to have the best authentic gelato, you're going to want to avoid any gelato that looks like you see in that picture where it's heaped and piled and going all up and standing on its own over the metal tubs. That's a sure tip off that they've whipped a bunch of extra air into it to make it look really fancy and appealing for tourists. But Italians know that that gelato is a commercial type of gelato. It's not an authentic, like artisanal gelato. So you're going to want to watch out for that. You'll see a lot of that in the historic center. And also if the colors are like neon bright, that's a sure tip off that it's an artificially colored gelato, because natural fruit flavors, they're not going to have such bright kind of artificial looking color. And you may even, if you're lucky, you may even run into some gelato shops that don't even show the gelato. All you're going to see is a metal lid. And if that's the case, that's also a tip off that it's an authentic gelato and not a touristy one. In order to know what flavors they have, you're going to have to look at the list. They're going to probably have a list either on the wall or right on top of each of the tubs, and you can find out. Oh, one other thing about gelato, you order by the number of flavors. So you're going to order, usually it's 2 flavors. So don't feel like you're constrained to just get one flavor. You can mix and match. Typically it's 2 or 3 is kind of the standard cone size, but I've seen gelateria where it goes up to 4, even 4 flavors on one cone. So have fun mixing and matching. Gelato shops usually divide them by like the cream and chocolate flavors on one side and all the fruit flavors on the other side. So it kind of keeps you, but you can mix, you can do however you want. Last but not least, a couple of my personal local tips. So on the top here, the photo, you see this water fountain. Rome is famous for these nazzoni. They're called nazzoni, which means big nose. It's because of the way that spigot is shaped, and they all look like this. There's thousands of these throughout the city. The water just runs continuously. It comes deep from underground. It's ice cold when it comes out. So this is my recommendation, is to bring a reusable water bottle and refill at these water fountains. In my resource list, I'm going to give you information about an app you can put on your smartphone where it will show you where all the different water fountains are at wherever you're at. So you'll find your next water refill pretty easily that way. And an extra local tip is if you don't have a water bottle, but you still want to have a drink, you can plug the bottom with your thumb. There's a little hole on top of the spigot. The water will kind of go do like a back pressure. It'll start flowing out that hole, and it will make an arch where you can kind of drink it like a drinking fountain. Just be careful you don't spray anybody walking by, because that has been known to happen. Another place that's fun that a lot of tourists don't always get to is Villa Borghese. It's a beautiful, really green outdoor public park. It's right above Piazza del Popolo. And so if you go to Pincio Terrace, which I have a link to in the resource list I'm going to share with you, you can get a beautiful panoramic photo of Rome. You can also rent what's called a Risho bike. I don't know if you've ever seen these, but they're these bikes that have seats. They're pedal bikes where you can both pedal. There's a little steering wheel. They have a roof, and they rent those by the hour. So you can have one for 2 people. And there's even little baskets in the front. If you have little kids, you can put your kids in the basket. And then there's there's ones with like 4 that accommodate 4 people, and you can rent those for an hour and just kind of pedal around the park. It's a giant park. It's adjacent to the city zoo. It's very beautiful. Or you can rent a rowboat and go out on the lake. And I also recommend that you have an aperitivo. An aperitivo is a pre-dinner drink. So it can be also alcoholic, non-alcoholic, but they often serve it with little snacks as well. So it's a fun local tradition. And I'm going to also share with you the place where this photo was taken, because it's a really abundant aperitivo for like just 10 euros. Sometimes it can be enough to be like a dinner. Now I'll turn it back over to Lorian to tell you about a special place where our members can visit.
Amazing. Thank you, Shelley. So last but not least, our newest member benefit is the access to the Borgia Gallery, which is one of the only places in the city where you can access the original ancient Roman street level. So it's a little bit underground. And during your visit to the gallery, you'll hear about some of the fascinating history of the Borgia family, and you'll get a unique look into the history of the Roman Renaissance. Not to mention that your visit will be paired with a wine tasting and an aperitivo, which Shelley just mentioned is a great way to experience local food culture. And this is all led by an expert sommelier. This is only accessible to our Primo members. It's truly one of a kind experience, and it's one of our most popular experience. It's a really, really fun way to experience a little bit more of a unique aspect of Rome. It will be closed between November 25th to December 18th for renovations. But any time before that is bookable right now, and you can reach out to us, or you can do so online once you become a member with us. All the instructions are in your confirmation email.
Okay, so that wraps up our presentation portion of the webinar. And like I said, you're going to receive an email with links to a resource list. We're going to have a recap of the Q&A that's about to happen. And I'm also going to send you a link to the recording of this webinar, because I know we gave you a lot of information really quickly. So if you want to go back and review, you're going to have a link to this recording. And if you want to get to the resource list before you receive that email, you can visit our community at italiapass.com. Just click on community and then go to Ready for Rome under the Italy travel planning. And there you will find the resource list. But I'm going to send that all to you in an email. So now I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we're going to move to the Q&A portion of our webinar, in which you can ask us questions live. And just go to the Q&A icon on the bottom of your screen, click and open that chat box, and we will begin answering your questions. We're going to spend 15 minutes, and if we don't get to all of them, then like I said, I will work on that after we close, and I will type them out and answer them for you in the community. Okay, so we have a few questions already in the chat.
Okay. So the first question I'll take since it's about trains. So Miruna, you're asking, do we need to validate the train tickets ahead? I have downloaded the train tickets already. So that depends. If your train tickets are for a high-speed train, and this is clearly outlined on your ticket and in the confirmation email, you do not need to validate them. You can just board the train and show your tickets while you're seated on the train. And if your train is a regional train, and usually that is also indicated on your ticket, and it'll also be clearly outlined in your email that you received from us that you need to check in. So that's kind of the validation process. You check in online for your regional train tickets, not for the high speed ones. And how I'll take the second one also, if you don't mind, just because it's about the Primo. So how do I show I am a Primo member? So you don't need to show it. You're in our system with your email address and your Primo member number. So we know you're a Primo member when you reach out to us or when you book something with us because of your email address. So make sure to use the email address that you used when you signed up for your membership. You purchased Relate. So that's something that you can email us about specifically. Please, you've received the email address to email us from and ask us if you want, because the Relay does include it in your membership, but it can also be purchased on the site. That's a little bit more complicated. So do let us know through email. And
Well,
cash or credit cards works everywhere. I think you answered that, Shelly, a lot.
yeah. So you don't actually, Rome used to be a really cash-based society, but it's come a long way in the past 20 years. So generally you can use your credit cards everywhere, even for small purchases, say at the tabaqueria or at the coffee bar. The one place that's probably you're not going to be able to use your cards is at the newsstand. So if you're buying a bus ticket, you're going to want to have, so I would recommend you have small amounts of cash. And I do recommend that to get cash, you take that out from an official Italian bank ATM. And this is also in the resource list. I give you kind of some information about the ATMs to avoid that try to charge high commission fees. And I would also avoid changing your physical money, like changing dollars into euros at a at a currency exchange shop, because they also take a quite hefty commission on that. The next question, I'll tag along on this one. Do taxis and restaurants generally take Apple Pay? Yes. Luckily, we have come into the future here. We've caught up, and we a lot of the Rome businesses do take the contactless smartphone payment systems.
Perfect. Hi, I arrived late because of work. Are there any tips for car rentals, specifically renting from Rome and Termini Station? Yes, so if you can head to italiadrive.com and search for Roma Termini as the location that you want to rent the car from, and you can look at all the options on there. I did recommend not to, rent a car if you're going to stay in Rome or in the major cities, but if you're going to be navigating throughout Italy, then that's a good option that you have there. But this will be also in the resources, right, Shelly? I'm assuming the Italia Drive link. You have it in there? Okay, perfect.
Okay, are the multi-hour public transport passes good for both the metro and buses? Yes, they're good for any kind of public transport that ATAC offers. The next question is the Trevi Fountain in walking distance from Hotel Quirinale. Yeah, I think you could probably get there in 15 to 20 minutes walking, and it's a nice walk. And luckily it's not so hot anymore in Rome now, so that will be a pleasant walk for you. Can you purchase a 72-hour pass at the airport? I don't think that there's ATAC public transport machines at the airport. I could be wrong on that, but I doubt it. But I do believe that you can buy it. Maybe you can buy it online. Let me research that and put it in our Q&A recap. And if not, I will tell you where if you're going from the airport to Termini Station, which is where most people go, you're definitely going to be able to find a ticket machine at Termini Station if you need it right away. So you probably won't take public transport until you actually hit the city. So your first point of contact in the city would be at Termini, and you can buy your public transport pass at the station there.
The Boris storm prediction, will Ravenna, Bologna, and Rome be affected when? Thank you. not quite sure.
I don't know about that either. I'm happy to look that information up when I go through and do the Q&A recap, see if I can find anything for you online. And if I do, even because I can also search in Italian. So I'll kind of scan and see if I can find you for Lana, if I can find you anything on that. And if I do, I will put it in the Q&A recap. I'll go on this since I live here. How's the weather now? What type of clothing should I bring? And usually how bad is it on a rainy day in September and October? So the weather now, at least for me, being originally from the Seattle area, is heaven. I love it. So we use Celsius here. It's generally been between 15 and 20 degrees. So we're kind of right now in Fahrenheit, we're like around in the upper 60s, low 70s, upper 70s. It's very pleasant for walking. We have had quite a bit of rain this week. What clothing should you bring? Layered. I think layered clothing for this time of year. How bad is it on a rainy day? Well, it really depends. I will tell you that Rome has a habit of doing like 1 or 2 drops and then 2 seconds later a downpour. So I would say that if you have a portable travel umbrella, that's really handy to keep in your bag that you walk around the city with, because Rome it's not like Seattle where it's just drizzly all the time. It's like 2 drops and then downpour. And so you'll oftentimes see people taking shelter under like the overhangs of shops and things like that. You will get soaked. So who knows? Part of the fun of traveling. All right, what's next? Oh, I'll take this too, since it's another Rome-based local question. Although I am attempting to learn Italian, is English spoken some away from the tourist areas? Yeah, I would say so. I live in a neighborhood that's outside of the main center. And I think that if you make an attempt, people are generally, especially in Rome, generally very friendly. And oftentimes you may find they're happy to practice their English. A lot of people don't get a lot of conversation practice, and so they're happy to try their English out. So absolutely don't feel intimidated. Although you are attempting to learn Italian, I would absolutely encourage you to use all the Italian that you know, because Romans are delighted. They're delighted when visitors try to use a little bit of Italian. So you will be warmly received when you use your Italian.
If you bought your ticket online, how do you get them transferred to the app on your phone? So you cannot transfer for now the tickets on the Italia Pass app. However, if you've booked your tickets, you can download the Trenitalia app on your phone and enter your ticket specification. So ticket number, I believe it's last name and email, and you will be able to access them on the Trenitalia app. Yes.
Okay, so the next question, John is asking, where's the best place to get a map of Rome, like a tourist info booth in Rome or at the airport? Let me research that for you, John, because I don't know if there's an like an official city tourist info booth at the airport. I would imagine there is, but let me double check. I'm 99% sure there's one at Termini though, once you get into the city. But yeah, the Rome city does have a free map that they offer to tourists. So let me look up where you can get those, and then I'll put that information in our Q&A recap for you. I'll take the next one too, because it's a local question. How to hail a cab? This is such a good question. It says, just stand on the sidewalk and raise your hand, or do you use an app? You use an app. The taxis will not stop here if you hail them, maybe rarely, but it's not a custom. Generally, the way it works is throughout the city, there's these places, you're going to see them because there's an orange, it'll just be an orange sign on a large pole that'll say taxi. And what that means is it's a taxi stand, and they get in a line. The taxis line up and you get in line, and you got to go to the first taxi in the front of the line. And so that's one way of catching a taxi. And there are several apps that I've been told work really well. So that also helps with the language barrier. You don't have to worry about speaking to an Italian speaking operator on the phone. But yeah, you probably won't have luck, mostly because the taxis that are running already have passengers inside, because if they're not running, they're either going to pick someone up or they're waiting at a taxi stand.
Arriving at 10:45 p.m. at the airport, assuming taxi is the best option to get into central Rome. Yes. I would say so at that time, or we can arrange again for a private transfer for you from the airport to your accommodations, but taxi would be the best option, especially if there's only 2 of you. If there's more, then I would say go with a transfer.
The next question is very timely for right now. It says, is there lots of construction in the historical district right now? Will it interfere with my tour? Yes, since many of you know that the Jubilee year is starting next year. We do have quite a bit of construction going on. So it won't interfere with your tour, however, because it doesn't actually go into any of the monuments or anything like that. It's just to build like an underground. So it just is a little unsightly. Like in the main, like Piazza Venezia, there's scaffolding and things like that. So unfortunately, in order for them to make improvements for next year, you will see a lot of construction. There's a little bit of traffic around the Vatican. So if you're in a taxi, you might run into some more traffic jams than you normally would because they're building an underpass for cars there. But in terms of your tour, no, you're still going to get to see everything that you would have normally seen on your tour.
I think the next question also you covered during the presentation about pickpockets, besides the Vatican.
Are knapsacks okay besides the Vatican? Are they, I don't know if they mean, can we bring them on
Can
other
you bring back
tours?
that? Yeah.
Yeah.
So on if you no, you can't bring a big backpack into the Vatican or the Colosseum. What I recommend is keeping your belongings kind of in a crossbody bag or a small bag because they won't allow you to have a really big backpack, luggage, stroll, or anything brought into it.
Judy asked, what is the best way to learn some quick conversational Italian? That's a great question. A lot of people have told me they use the Duolingo app, but I'm not sure if that's something that will give you the basics. Let me look up for you in our Q&A because our partner Italy Magazine, I believe, has some downloadables with basic Italian. And I will check into that for you and send you some other links. All right, we'll tackle these last two questions from Sean and Randy, and then we'll close it. And if any, you can still write your questions in the chat if you have more, and I will answer those offline.
So what do you need coverage again to go into the Vatican? You need to cover your knees and your shoulders. So a t-shirt and, long pants, or I think you would said if it's one of those pants that you can kind of unzip, zip back up kind of thing if it's really hot. But now we're getting into the cooler months, so it shouldn't really be a problem. But yeah, that's what you need. And anywhere else for knapsacks? Okay, I think you mean backpacks. I mean anywhere else, that's yes, I would. Yeah, I mean just walking around in Rome, it's just not the best for if you want to be the safest for pickpockets and things like that, just because everything is on your back. But if you don't have to enter any of the big monuments, then yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's more for like restrictions in terms of entering monuments. I do see a lot of tourists sometimes wearing backpacks in front. Now, when you're walking around the city, that's fine. Even if you have it on your back, it's okay because you're not going to have people that close to you. My concern around pickpockets is when you're in areas where you're pushed by people because it gets really crowded in Termini. So that's where when people are pushing on you, you're not going to feel somebody reaching into your bag. So that's really it. If you're walking around the city, don't worry. You'll see if someone's approaching you. Pickpockets won't waste their time with that. They're going to go in an area where no one's going to feel them because there's too many tourists and there's too many crowds. So I'm telling you, Termini, the minute you're in Termini, you don't have to look like you're like panicking, but just be aware of your surroundings. And maybe that would be a moment when you'd put the backpack in front in Termini, but you don't have to walk around the city with the backpack in front.
Sounds good.
All right. I'm gonna, oh, that's so nice. You're very welcome. We've gotten some thank yous in the chat. You're so very welcome. We are so pleased to share this information with you. Please feel free to follow up with any more questions in the community. Look for our email in your email inbox. And I will follow up with all these any extra questions that come in. I will answer those offline for you as well. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful time in Italy.
Happy travels.